Good morning, everybody. This is the live market open for Tuesday, November 3rd. I'm Yohay, Elam, Forex Crunch and Market Movers, doing the show, for fxstreet.com. Hope everybody had a good night's sleep. Happy trading day yesterday, and we have some action to talk about today. As always, we'll talk about recent developments in markets, charts, and levels, what's ahead in the next 24 hours, and of course, your questions, which are the most important ones. I see quite a few people in the room. So if you can't see the chat box, go to tlk.io/fxstreet-forex-live-video. Okay, so what did we have recently? We had the UK manufacturing PMI beating with much better than expected results, 55.5. That was a big surprise. It helped the pound make gains against the euro, against the dollar, against everybody else. And then we had the same manufacturing PMI, but from ISM in the United States. So it was okay. It was just a bit above expectations, 50.1. But the employment component, it showed contraction. It showed that the US actually lost jobs in the manufacturing sector. And this figure is important because it's a hint towards the non-farm payrolls on Friday. Okay, so this is a sort of ominous sign. Bad numbers for the road ahead for the non-farm payrolls. Today we have another small hint, and tomorrow we have even bigger hints. And then during the night, just a few hours ago, we had the rate decision in Australia, and that was no change. The RBA did complain a bit about the exchange rate of the Aussie, said it is falling together with commodity prices, which of course the RBA likes. But they have a scope to cut further, but all in all, they weren't too worried about the Australian economy, and this helped the Aussie rise. So let's take a look at the chart we talked about so far. Pound dollar. Okay, this was the rise yesterday. It's a bit slow to react. Let's see it now. So pound dollar did make strides, did make its move higher. Now, why can't we see it? Just a moment. Okay, here we go. So pound dollar made its way, almost touched 155. Now it's a bit in range, 154.40. But all in all, it got this positive boost right here yesterday from the better than expected figures. Lines to watch here: 155 on the top side, 153.70 on the downside. Okay, Aussie dollar. Here's the jump. First of all, it was very choppy. So initially, we had a whipsaw fall to the downside to 71.10 before the pair rose again to 72. The high so far is 72.18, but this battle is still going on. So I would say we still don't have a confirmation of the break of 72. On the top side, 72.80, and then 74. On the downside, it's 71.10. Let's put it here. The new line that we had post, 71.10 more or less. So these are the lines to watch in Aussie dollar. Okay, so these are the currencies that moved. Let's talk about others. Euro dollar, very much stuck in range. We talked about 110 to 110.70. We had the week opening with a small gap. This gap was eventually closed. I mean, it was touched here once again, but all in all, a very frustrating, very narrow range. Today we will hear from Draghi. We'll talk about the events for today. Hopefully, something will move. Okay, but the range in general, 110 to 110.70. But today's range is so limited, 24 pips. It's nothing. Okay. Further levels on the downside, 109.50, 109 is strong. Even stronger, 108.10. On the upside, it's 110.70 and then 111.30, which was the post-Draghi attempt to recover. Okay. Dollar yen. Also, it stays away from 120. It's not 120 is not the magnet it used to be. So it's 120.63 at the moment. Resistance 121.50. Support 120 now turns not into a pivot line, but actually to real support. And further support is at 118. Okay, these are sort of the wide levels, but currently we're in a narrow range. hopefully towards the NFP, and of course afterwards we'll have breakouts of some of these ranges. Dollar CAD, also 131, stuck in the same place. 131 is resistance. Well, not so. It's more the level that the pair is hugging at the moment. 130.70, which was support, which was resistance in the past, is now support. 132.40 is resistance. Good morning, Dylan. Good morning, Rob. Good morning, everybody. Looking forward to your questions. New Zealand dollar, 67.40 in range. The range currently 67 to 68 or more. If we're a bit more precise, 67.90. Okay, we have events coming on for New Zealand today, quite a few. We'll talk about them soon, and hopefully this pair might break out of range before all the rest. Okay, so let's see what we have in the agenda today. At 9:30 GMT, half an hour or a bit more after the show, we have UK construction PMI. This is the second out of 3 PMIs, purchasing managers indices. They are important because they sort of predict the future, if you wish. It's a survey of people who are in charge of the economy, let's call it this way, because they buy stuff for companies, and they're surveyed for their prospects for the future. Okay, so we have here, and let's look at what's expecting us. It's right. Why can't I see it? Market manufacturing, here we go. Yeah, it's right here. So the construction sector has been one of the strongest so far in the UK economy. Last month it stood on 59.9, that was September. Now we're waiting for the figure for October. It's expected to be a bit lower, 58.8. But it's important to remember, the 50-point mark separates contraction from growth. So 58.8, if we get this kind of number, it still means very solid growth. Just a reminder, we had much lower levels in the construction sector. Here, sorry, in the manufacturing sector, we had 51.5 in September, and then we had this big jump here to 55.5. So that's so the levels in construction are much better. What else do we have today on the agenda? At 3 GMT, 3 in London, 4 here in the old continent. We have the factory orders from the United States. Not top tier like the ISM PMIs or like ADP, but still an important figure. It's quite volatile. You can see here a drop in August to 1.7, and now it's expected to fall once again, minus 0.9. But this is, as you can see here on the chart, it sometimes goes a bit crazy, jumps and then crashes. And so it's also not the most important one. We have at the same time the economic optimism index, but the main figure from the United States today is the factory orders one. And then sometime around 4 GMT, 5 GMT, it's unclear, there's no official publication time. We have the New Zealand GDT price index. It's the global dairy trade. Basically, if you wish, the price of milk. That's New Zealand's main export. Last time it fell 3.1%, and it hurt the kiwi. It ended a winning streak of 4 consecutive gains. You can see here we had 10 consecutive falls in prices, in milk prices. Then we had 4 rises in milk prices. Last time we had minus 3.1. Expectations are, according to what I've heard, is sort of more of the same. Another drop of around 3%. In any case, nothing is really priced in, so any result can move the kiwi quite strong. In general, higher milk prices, good for New Zealand. Lower milk prices, bad for New Zealand. Okay. What else do we have on the agenda today for you? Also from New Zealand, I'll jump Draghi and get back to him a bit later. New Zealand employment data. Okay, so it's released only once per quarter, which is quite uncommon, of course. Some countries have it, most countries have it once a month. Let's see what the numbers, what we are expecting here. So we have quite a lot of figures. The most important ones are employment change. We're expecting, last time we had a rise of 0.3%, this time 0.4%. These are the figures for the third quarter that ended just over a month ago. And the unemployment rate. It stood at 5.9%. It's expected to rise to 6%. All in all, the New Zealand economy is doing well. The New Zealand dollar has been relatively resilient to everything that's happened in China. The Australian dollar suffered a bit more because New Zealand exports mostly dairy products and other agricultural goods, and these are a bit less vulnerable. Okay, when talking in every country, when talking about the unemployment rate, we also have to talk about the participation rate at 69.3% off the highs here, but still, if you just compare to the United States, where it's 62.4, it shows you that even if the unemployment rate rises and the participation rate remains unchanged, of course, it's not good news for those out of work, but the economy, the wider picture of the economy in New Zealand is still positive, okay? And another figure to look, if you're trading the Kiwi, of course, is the labor cost index. How much does it cost to employ people? And this has gone up 1.8% year over year in Q2. Now we don't have expectations, but I guess it should be more of the same. Okay. And now the main dish for today, Mario Draghi talks. The president of the ECB, he has a public appearance in Frankfurt. The big question is, he talks at he delivers opening remarks at the European Cultural Days 2015 event in Frankfurt. So is he going to just welcome everybody to the event, or is he going to talk business, talk monetary policy? As he has more public appearances this week, he might refrain from providing us with some juicy stuff from good data, but perhaps there will be some questions and we'll hear from him a bit more. Okay, so I think markets will be glued to, well, those trading the euro, of course, will be keen to hear anything from Draghi. He might disappoint us, okay? And I don't know what it means for the euro, but because if he doesn't say anything, it doesn't do anything. But don't worry, also tomorrow we'll have Draghi. Tomorrow we'll have Draghi at 9 GMT, which is just after the show ends. And this time he'll be speaking in, Frankfurt again. And it's on banking supervision, also not exactly monetary policy, but perhaps you'll have a better chance. So we have the Draghi show, if you wish, beginning today. Tomorrow we have him again, and then on Thursday. But it's important to remember, Draghi also releases, and his colleagues, the ECB, also release remarks when it's not related to an event. So sometimes you have headlines popping out when there's some kind of interview for a newspaper or things like that. Okay, so this is another event. And tomorrow morning we have Australian retail sales and trade balance. Let's see what we're expecting there. And remember, the numbers can go in different directions. In trade balance, we're expecting a deficit of 2.8 billion Aussie dollars, a bit better than last time, 3 billion. But it also depends on the imports and exports, especially exports to China. And retail sales, where did that go? It's right here. We have an expectation for a rise of 0.4%, just like the previous month. September is expected to repeat August. Okay, we have, of course, other figures. Another thing to watch, especially if you're trading the Aussie, is the Chinese Caixin Services PMI. Now, for Australia, of course, industry is more important, manufacturing is more important than services. But for the global economy, the world wants to see China moving out from industrial output, industrial production, and more towards services, more towards internal consumption. So this is also meaningful. Okay. All right. So these are the main events. Let's look at a few more charts, and of course, we're looking forward to your questions. Dollar Swiss, a bit stuck now in range again. It shot higher because the euro fell. And when the euro falls against the dollar, the Swiss National Bank doesn't want it to fall alone. It doesn't want the franc to strengthen, so it intervenes to weaken the franc against the euro, and this of course has an impact of weakening the franc against the US dollar. We had the highs of 99.50, now we're at 98.60, sort of grinding a bit lower. This line here, 98.70, sort of minor resistance, have some support here at 98.15, but it's important to remember this pair suffers intervention. It will, as well as other Swiss pairs. Okay, Euro Swiss, very, very stable in range. 108.65, the low line is 107.50 and the top 110, but the ranges are very narrow. Euro Pound, yesterday we had a dip just under 71. That was due to the better than expected data from the UK. Will we see that move again because of the UK construction PMI? Well, I hope to see some action. In any case, the levels here are, well, the previous 71. Sorry, we didn't have a break under 71, but anyway, we're seeing in general a gradual drop of Euro Pound, step by step, sort of lower lows, lower highs. Okay, resistance at 72, support of course at 70, but it's a bit far at the moment. All in all, the pair is much lower than a few weeks ago when it's almost touched 75. Okay, Euro Yen, not so more the safe haven pair that we used to know, because the euro is a bit more vulnerable. So just under 133 at the moment, support at 131.50 and 134.20. Pound yen, the dragon, it made a wild move yesterday because of this better than expected UK manufacturing PMI. Almost reached 187, but all in all, I think we can say that it's trying to base itself above the previous level of 186. 186, as you can see here on the left-hand side of the chart, was support. In September, when the pair traded at high range, it made a few futile attempts to break higher. Perhaps it's making it now. In any case, the level to watch on the upside, 188.10, and on the downside, 186 is still some kind of support, followed by 184.50. Now, regarding the pound, if we have better manufacturing and strong services, I think it's not that important to have a strong construction sector. It's a bit smaller, and UK policymakers don't want to see the recovery in the UK, the growth based on construction. They don't want to see another bubble. Some say there's already a new bubble in London. I'm not sure if that's true, but in any case, they want the better thing for the economy in the UK and everywhere is to see it in a wider manner. Construction, manufacturing, services, everywhere. Okay, so if we have a worse than expected construction PMI today, I'm not sure the pound will really crash. Not against the dollar, not against the euro, not against the yen. Okay. Any questions, anybody? So let's look at what else we have today. Sorry, not today. We have this week. Let's recap. Yesterday we had the Chinese Caixin manufacturing PMI. That came out actually better than expected. It still shows contraction in manufacturing, but it has already been worse. It rose from the lows. Okay, so that was sort of supportive of the Australian dollar. Then we had the ISM manufacturing PMI from the United States. The headline was not too bad, but the employment component was very worrying. This morning we had the Australian rate decision. Came out better than expected, or for the Aussie at least, it wasn't too dovish, it wasn't too dark. All right, and we had so we had the Australian dollar continue higher. Let's just take a look at it if I'm talking about it. So yeah, 72, still battling this line. 72.80 is on the upside. Okay. And today we have the first out of 3 speeches of Mario Draghi, employment data in New Zealand. And what do we have tomorrow? We have a testimony by Janet Yellen, but it's important to remember here that it's about regulation, about too big to fail, about banks. I think it can be interesting, but not necessarily market moving, okay? So even if we have interesting stuff from Yellen, doesn't mean it's market moving, at least the introductory statement. Perhaps later on, she'll be asked questions by politicians. Some ask really stupid questions, but some might ask her interesting stuff and make her say something about monetary policy. So it begins at 3 GMT tomorrow. Perhaps we'll hear something more important only at 4, 5, 6 GMT. These things tend to last for a long time. And tomorrow we have two big hints for the non-farm payrolls, the ADP NFP, and the ISM non-manufacturing PMI. Of course, the US services sector is much, much bigger than manufacturing. On Thursday, we have a Super Thursday for the UK, a rate decision, the inflation report, and of course the meeting minutes. We'll see if the Bank of England is getting closer to a rate hike or not so fast. Okay, this is certainly an open question. All right, and then on Friday, of course, we have the all-important. Where is that? Here, yeah, non-farm payrolls. Currently, expectations stand at 180,000. I think that after Wednesday and Thursday, we'll have updated expectations. So far, the first hint is negative, as I said. Okay, so these are the main events for the week. Let's take a look at oil prices. Also stuck in range. Too many currency pairs stuck in range, and even commodities are doing the same show. So $46, resistance at 47, support 45. But we're in a higher range than the fall we had last week to up to 42.50. There was news coming out from a Trans-Canada company, if I'm not mistaken, that they asked the US government, they decided to withdraw the request for the Keystone Extra Large pipeline, which is very controversial in terms of environment and things like that. Anyway, I think it's not that they care too much about the environment, it's because oil prices are so low that it doesn't make sense economically. It's not viable anymore. In any case, I don't see any effect from this news on the price of oil. Let's take a look at gold. Is any of you somebody trading gold here? I personally don't follow it too closely. Anyway, we had a collapse in the price of gold due also to the Federal Reserve with the hawkish hints last week. And so we're now at 1135, below support at 1142. Next support is 1100. Okay, resistance 1182 is still strong resistance on the price of gold. If any of you is here on the chat, oh, well, you can't hear me. I'll put the link to the video. Perhaps you'll be interested in the show, and you're not here, and you have questions. So anyway, so these are the charts we're looking at. Of course, we talked in the show about many other charts. We can talk about them as well. Let's see. EuroCAD 143.50 is support. Let's add this line. Falling a bit lower because oil prices have stabilized and the euro is still vulnerable. Let's take Aussie against the Kiwi. So we've seen it rise from the ashes, if you wish, thanks to this Australian rate decision. But the trend, I think, remains lower. Parity is still far away. We're currently just under 107. And we seem to have bottomed out in the short term right here at, that's right here, 105. Sure, we trade, Tilan says, sure, we trade gold, but it's hard to short here. Yeah, it's hard to short, hard to go long. It's a bit stuck, the price of gold. We'll have to wait and see probably for the big events in December, or perhaps for something else. What other currency pairs do you trade, or any other commodities? I'll be glad to hear and try to answer. If you have any questions about that. Last week, somebody asked about euro against the Norwegian krone. So we had some stabilization here, thanks to, well, good news, well, for Norway, for oil prices. Well, I'm all a bit stuck in range. Because euro dollar, oh, it's beginning to move a bit to the downside. 110.08. Will we see it break below 110? If we all make an effort, maybe something will happen here. We had earlier employment data from Spain. I'm sitting here in Spain. We had the number of unemployed rise by 82,000. Now, employment is very seasonal in Spain because of tourism. We have, especially where I am here in Barcelona, we have so many tourists, sometimes too many, but you know, you can't complain. It's good for the economy. So many people are working in the tourism industry and tourism sector. So after we had a gain of 70,000 in September, now it's 82,000. We're getting close to winter. It always rises towards the spring. But anyway, sorry, last time we had 26,000. Expectations stood on 70,000 and came out above 82. We have here elections here in Spain. Maybe I'll take the opportunity that you don't have too many questions at the moment to talk a bit about that. It's a risk event that is currently not in the news. Elections are held here in Spain on December 20th. It was the last possible date to hold elections. Very close to Christmas. Many people are on vacation. Many people are thinking only about the last minute Christmas gifts. Okay, the government wants less trouble. This time, usually we had only two parties sort of contesting for power. We had the Partido Popular, center-right, and the PSOE, the socialist, okay? And the socialists were in power from 2004 to 2011, and the last 4 years we had the center-right. But things are different this time in Spain. We have sort of a breakup of mainstream politics. New parties are springing up. One of them is Podemos. Podemos is a left-wing party, friends of Syriza in Greece, anti-corruption, anti-austerity, left-wing, and they differentiate themselves from the socialists by being more anti-corruption, because there's so much corruption in both mainstream parties here in Spain. So they have gained a lot of strength at the beginning, especially when they won a lot of seats in the European Parliament last year. But since then, they've lost a lot of power. One of the things that hurt them was what happened with Greece. So many Spaniards were afraid, okay, if this is what happens, if you rebel against the European Union, you're severely punished. But they're still going to get a good chunk of parliament, okay? And we have also on the right-wing side another new party that it's called Ciudadanos, which means citizens. They're sort of young people, new faces, also in theory anti-corruption. But if you look at what they represent, they're a bit extreme right in some cases. They began here in Catalonia as anti-Catalan independence, and then they went national. So we have two options here in Spain. One is that we have, according to the polls, of course, one is that we have a right-wing government made out of the center-right and the new right, or we have a left-wing coalition made out of the traditional socialists and Podemos, the more radical ones. So these are more or less the options that we have here. Currently, it's not a risk event, but if we have a hung parliament in the Eurozone's fourth largest economy, it might spell troubles, because so far the Eurozone is going forward quite well because the ECB is holding everything together and there's political stability. But political stability doesn't last forever. Okay, don't know how many. For me, it's of course interesting because I'm here, and I believe it will have an impact on the euro. We still have around 6 weeks to go. Okay, more questions? Let's look at more charts. Euro dollar here stuck in range. In general, volatility has been much higher until August, and September and October are seeing a bit less. Of course, it's a bit disappointing, but maybe some of you are trading the ranges. So in this case, euro dollar, for example, is quite stable, 110 to 110.70. Sell the highs, buy the lows, and the other way around, of course, and there you go. But I assume that most of you prefer breakouts than this kind of range trading. I believe things will warm up. I believe it's tension towards the bigger events that we have later this week, especially tomorrow and also on Friday. So we'll have more action on the road ahead. Okay. But another thing I want to show you, I think I showed you many times in the past, but this tool by the CME group sort of assess what will happen with the FOMC next time. Yeah, 51% against the rate hike in December, 48.4. It's more or less balanced. Okay, question from Rob, not exactly Forex related, but we have time. Where do the Spanish go on holidays? Well, I can tell you, first of all, there's lots of internal tourism here in Spain. So we have people going just to other cities. Usually, if it's one of the Spain has the Canary Islands. It was sort of the first colony of Spain, and now it's an integral part of the country. It's quite far away, actually, 3 hours flight from Barcelona. And it's sort of close to Morocco, Western Sahara. So it's much warmer weather in the winter. And of course, there's tourism all over Europe and other places in the world. The Balearic Islands, Ibiza, if you heard of course, I assume you heard of that, Mallorca. But also people just go to other cities and other places in nature. So that's, or just travel to their families which live in other cities. So having elections on December 20th means less people are going to vote, I think. But who knows, because it's so close, we were going to see action around there. I mean, more people voting than last time. We'll, of course, talk about that more in detail towards the event, give you the scenarios and potential outcomes. Questions. Look what's going on in pound dollar. It's falling now, 154.20. So is it related to the fall of euro dollar as well? I mean, slightly stronger US dollar across the board? Or are we seeing something else? Are we seeing perhaps rumors in the UK about a weak number in the construction PMI, and this can imply a leak or something like that? This can imply that we'll see even bigger falls later on, because these things do happen in the UK quite. It's not uncommon, let's say. Anyway, support 153.70, resistance 155. Okay. Any more questions? For those of you in the chat who are not watching the video, sorry, let me try to put the video on in the chat just in case somebody wants to ask questions. So any more questions about euro dollar? Do you think it'll break out of range? I do hope it will, but hope isn't a strategy, as you know. Is anybody trading CAD? The Kiwi, I talked quite a lot about the Kiwi because we have quite a few events today, but we didn't, I'm not sure how many of you are trading it. Quite a nice range, no? So I have this line here at 67. Let's add another line for the even narrower range right here at 67.20. Okay, 67.20 to 67.90 is the current range. The bigger range is 69 to 66.15. Okay. Any more questions about charts, about fundamentals? Maybe we'll talk a bit about the Bank of England on Thursday in the few minutes that we have, and then, and of course, your questions are welcome. So I'll put myself back on the camera. So the Bank of England has a triple event on Thursday. It's called Super Thursday by many. We'll talk about that more in detail on Thursday, but it's the rate decision. No change is expected. It's 0.5% for the interest rate, 375 billion for the QE program, no change. But there's a novelty since a few meetings ago. We have the second thing is that we have the meeting minutes released immediately after the event, okay, together with the rate decision. So we had, in the past 3 meetings, we had 8 members voting against the rate hike, including Governor Carney, and 1 member, Ian McCafferty, wanting to raise rates because he foresees higher inflation. Okay, if we have a change in this voting pattern, for instance, 9-0, it'll be dovish for the pound. If we have 7-2, if we have another member, perhaps Christine Forbes, perhaps another member, we have a stronger British pound. And this time also, we also have the quarterly release of the inflation report. That's a much more detailed document that provides forecasts, charts on the economy and growth, on jobs, on inflation, of course, which is the mandate of the Bank of England. And that's the third event for Thursday. And it's not only the report itself, which may be a bit more optimistic or pessimistic and may hint about rate hike or not, but there's also a press conference with Governor Mark Carney. Okay, and in this press conference, he may use it to provide some statements and his questions. And the British press, they do know how to provide tough questions, and it'll be interesting. So if you're trading the pound dollar, pound yen, euro pound, anything else, Thursday is the really big day. Central banks often try not to rock the boat too much, but we had a few good figures in the UK, not only yesterday's manufacturing PMI, but also strong retail sales and nice wage growth. So the question is, will the Bank of England acknowledge this and hint about rate hike coming sooner than later, or wait longer? Basically, they're waiting for the Fed to raise rates before the Bank of England. They don't want to be the first ones. No central bank wants to raise rates and then have to regret it and then do it relatively quickly. We had that from New Zealand last year. We had it from Australia a few years ago. We had it from other countries as well. So from my country, from Israel, they raised rates quite fast and then they had to lower them once again. So everybody wants to be cautious. Okay. So we'll hear from the Bank of England on Thursday. It should be quite interesting. Yeah. Any more questions on charts, on fundamentals? The bigger themes in the markets are, of course, the Federal Reserve to hike or not to hike once again. December 16th is the big day. Last week we had a Fed decision that was more hawkish because they said they were not that worried about the economy, and they talked about deciding in the next meeting. They gave a hint for us. So that's, of course, the biggest market mover. The ECB now, they're expected to act also in December 3rd. The question will be how much. There is a lively and open debate at Frankfurt at the ECB. We'll hear from Draghi today. What's going on in China? Things seem to be a bit better with this independent data, or not as gloomy, at least, as they seem to be in late August. Greece, well, it's in the back burner at the moment, but it'll come back to the front end soon. Okay, these are sort of the main themes moving markets. Pound dollar still, well, it's a bit lower. Waiting for the construction PMI in 50 minutes. Not much moving here. Euro dollar weaker. Oh, it's a bit close to 110. Currently at the lows of the day, 110.04. Okay. So if there aren't any more questions, let's get to the wrap up. Not doing any wrap show here. So this is the wrap of the live market open for November 3rd. It's Tuesday. We had interesting figures beforehand. We had the UK manufacturing PMI beating with 55.5. This was positive for the pound, which is moved back up to the higher range. And now we have another test for the pound. The range is 155 on the top to 150 on the top to 153.70 on the bottom. We have construction PMI today, services tomorrow, Bank of England on Thursday. Very busy week. Currently, the pound is showing strength, and not only against the US dollar. ISM manufacturing PMI in the United States. Headline figure was okay, 50.1, but the employment component was not so good. It wasn't contraction. And the guys at the ISM even said clearly the United States manufacturing sector probably lost some jobs in October. This is a bit worrying towards Friday's NFP. Okay, what else do we have? Rate decision in Australia. So not only did the Reserve Bank of Australia decide not to cut interest rates, despite talk about being forced to by commercial banks by regulation, we had also they were not that worried about the economy, okay? And so some banks are expecting them to cut the rates only in February or something like this. Stronger Aussie dollar, but still hesitating around 72. Levels to watch 72.80 and 71.10. Okay. Let's talk about the events for today. In the wrap up at 9:30, construction PMI in the UK. It can come worse than expected if we look at the pound dollar chart, but it's not so certain. Factory orders in the United States, a bit of a second tier figure, but we're expecting a fall there. So if we have low expectations, mean some chance for a surprise to the upside. An important day for New Zealand today. We have the New Zealand global dairy trade price index, which is expected to drop a bit more following last auctions drop. It's released every 2 weeks. And then New Zealand employment data expected to show a growth, some growth in employment, but a rise also of the unemployment rate to 6%. And we have Mario Draghi beforehand at 7 GMT. The president of the European Central Bank will speak in Frankfurt. He's expected to deliver opening remarks. This might turn into a non-event. I hope not. Maybe you'll be asked some questions over there, and we'll hear from him. He has 2 more appearances this week. Maybe he'll move the euro dollar out of range. So we have currently euro dollar at the lows of the day, at the bottom of the range at 110.04. 110.03 was the low. Range is 110 to 110.70. 109 and 108.10 are support lines. 110.70, 111.30, and 112.15 are resistance lines. Usually when we have a long period, like here last week or 2 weeks ago, when we had a long period of consolidation, then we had a huge movement. Hopefully it'll happen today as well. And as we speak, it's 110.01. Okay, so we're getting closer step by step. Other currency pairs, dollar yen 120.75, a bit detached from 120, not hugging it anymore. So 120 is support, 121.50 is resistance. Dollar CAD a bit rising, a stronger dollar across the board, perhaps just a bit this morning. 131.03, resistance 132.04, support, significant support at 130. New Zealand dollar towards the big events. It's very stable in range, 67.20 to 67.90. Bigger levels to watch are 66.15 and 69. Okay, and dollar Swiss, well, it suffers intervention. Anyway, parity is the big level above, 98.15 below, and then 96.60. So these are the levels for today, the charts, the big events. Later this week, we have, of course, the non-farm payrolls. It looms large on markets, and of course we have more build-up on Wednesday with the ADP and ISM non-manufacturing PMI. Okay, so that's all for today. Good morning, happy pips. Have you been here all along? Anyway, I think we have 1 more minute perhaps for a quick question if you have. But if not, we'll wrap up. Just say thanks to FX Street and thank you everybody for coming. See quite a few of you in the chat, and wish everybody a safe trading day. We do see some boredom in markets. I don't like it at all, but at least when we have some kind of boredom, then we have some kind of explosion. So I hope it'll come fast. Euro dollar as we speak exactly at 110, and already dipped below this level while I was showing the slide, 109.97. Let's see if we can break more ground here. So thank you everybody for coming today. Wish everybody a safe and successful day in the markets, and see you tomorrow. Bye bye.